What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 50. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for joining me on the 50th episode. It is unbelievable that I've already kind of done 50 different movies and talked about them, given my thoughts, my reviews, my pros and cons, probably stuttered and said too many ums throughout these podcasts, but it's been a lot of fun. It's already been, I think, 2 years that I started this podcast. So for anybody that's kind of listened in on any one of those episodes, thank you so much. For anybody new, well, welcome. What we try to do here is just kind of give a review of a new movie that I've been able to see in theaters, kind of give you my thoughts, my opinions, whether I, again, enjoyed some of it, whether I thought it was worth seeing in the theaters, or maybe if it's just kind of worth waiting for streaming. And I also try to ask the important question, a ridiculous question, if you really think about it, and that's, is a film timeless after one viewing? It's ridiculous, I know. It's kind of, crazy that you would think that after one viewing, this movie would be something that you could, register in your mind thinking, yeah, I can watch this over and over and over again. Sometimes you hit that lightning in a bottle with the movie, right? Something catches your interest and it's just amazing. It's magic. And other times, it's just a good, enjoyable experience. You had fun, you laughed, you cried, but you don't really want to experience it anymore. So on this episode for number 50, we're going to be covering the new film, The Creator, by director Gareth Edwards. I completely had forgotten, and it's all over the marketing and all over the posters that they have for The Creator, but I completely forgot that Gareth Edwards actually made Rogue One, which was one of the great Star Wars films that has come out over the last couple of years. And so it kind of got me excited that knowing that, again, it's going to be more of like a sci-fi type of a film just by seeing the trailers. It had a really cool concept. And so let's dive in to the first segment. And I really kind of like to cover some of the thoughts that I had before actually watching the movie. Some of my biggest questions or thoughts of The Creator was, how would this movie end, and would it end with like a sacrifice, right? I'm thinking of it just because of how they framed it in the trailer. You have John David Washington's character basically seeming like he's going to be taking care of or protecting this child that is an AI robot. And so it seems like it's basically going to come down to one of these two characters. They frame it as, again, it's like a good relationship that they're going to have. There's obviously going to be a lot of trials and tribulations, a climax, but I feel like there's going to be a sacrifice that's going to be need to made. And that's one of the things that I actually really enjoy about some of these sci-fi films and different types of movies as well, is when you're pitted with a specific type of a catastrophe or something to kind of save a specific type of a situation, like maybe saving the human race. What's going to end up happening is that, somebody's going to have to end up sacrificing their life or sacrificing their principles or ideas to make something better for the world. And so I feel like there's got to be some type of sacrifice. Will it be the child AI robot, or will it be John David Washington's character? One of them has got to go. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe the child. Maybe they seems like, again, they are an AI robot that's sent to, again, maybe save humanity or save robots in some type of a way. So I feel like that might happen. Maybe I'm being a little too dark and having maybe a child sacrifice themselves, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. My second kind of question that I had before watching the film is, how would the story of The Creator play out? And would it be similar to other films that have very similar concepts? What I mean by that is, when I watched the trailer for The Creator, I had this kind of, there was a specific kind of a feeling that I got when I watched the trailer. It was like, I feel like I've seen this before. And I started thinking and talking to my brother, my girlfriend, and I started saying, you know what? This kind of reminds me of like Terminator, or specifically Terminator 2, where you have Arnold Schwarzenegger and his Terminator trying to save John Connor and protect him at all costs. So again, you kind of have it a little bit inverse, right? John Connor wasn't really an AI robot, but he was needed for the future of humanity. You have iRobot with Will Smith, and again, him teaming up with a AI robot as well, trying to save all robots. You even have, maybe, not even talking about films, but even TV series like The Last of Us. You have Ellie, who is going to be a vital part of the games going forward and what she means for humanity, and Joel, who's trying to protect her along the way. again, it has this very similar concept. It seems like John David Washington's character is going to have to protect this child at all costs because they hold a secret. They hold something that is an advantage for either humanity or for robots going forward. So I really want to see the comparison. Again, I know that all movies are made differently, than that they're not meant to obviously be connected or have similar stories, but I always like to kind of pull these types of movies that are kind of in that same bubble and kind of see again, where do they stack? Where do they rank up against each other? So those are the two biggest questions that I had before checking out The Creator. All right, everybody. Now I have actually gotten a chance to see The Creator, and let's go ahead and dive into some of my overall thoughts about the movie, pros and cons, and then kind of give you whether I would recommend you guys watch it in theaters or if it's something that you guys can wait for later on in streaming. I got a chance to check it out in Dolby Cinema at AMC, and I gotta say, man, it was a great sci-fi movie for me. Again, personally, again, all these things that I'm calling out here are going to be my personal opinion. Maybe the film hit very differently for you. If it did, let me know down below in the comments. But I really enjoyed The Creator from beginning to end. The concept of the movie was very similar to other stories, like I had mentioned before. I had called out different stories, or even through film or through TV, where you have this relationship between a individual that is trying to protect this child or this being or robot in some type of way, and they obviously have conflicts at the beginning. There's a climax, and then at the end they realize that they need each other. And even comparing to those other stories, it ends up kind of working for me. The story was kind of very similar. What the concept of the film is basically revolving around a man named Joshua, played by John David Washington, trying to protect Alfie, who is an AI robot. But Alfie has the unique ability of actually being able to control different robots and different types of technology. He's able to control turning on a car. At other times, he's able to control a robot that's trying to blow up. So there's a lot of different kind of themes that kind of play off of the ability of Alfie. But again, the central story revolves around Alfie connecting with Joshua and Joshua vice versa connecting with Alfie. And the story was just simple but satisfying. Again, the pace of the movie was really well done. Again, it starts off with just kind of giving you a picture as to how the world has evolved and how it got to this point. It goes through, like a little kind of a film type of a shot, and then it's kind of showing you, hey, here's when we introduce the car, here's when we introduce, different types of technology. And then at one point, it seems like it's, this is our reality. And at another point, they then show, here's a robot that's going to be able to drive for us. Here's a robot that can cook for you. Here's a robot that can do this job. And then you just see it all kind of progressing, and then you see human-like robots. From the front, they look like real humans, and on the side, they have this really cool type of a visual where, it's like a hole right through where their brain would be, or not even their brain, almost like the back of their head as well. And it shows you all that, and then all of a sudden, you just see it cut to black, and basically what ended up happening is a nuclear bomb went off in Los Angeles, and apparently humans blame robots because the robots were the ones that kind of dropped that bomb. And so that's kind of like, I thought it was genius to kind of just kick us off right into this story and kind of plop us right into what the heck is going on. Why are there, humans versus robots? And it kind of just gives you that idea very, very clearly. Again, really good stuff. The film takes place in 2065. Again, humanity is basically at war with robots due to the nuclear attack. Basically, the majority of the world, besides some of the countries in Asia, do not use any more robots. Because of that attack, they basically declare them as a threat. Only in those certain parts in Asia where they just, kind of went rogue, and they still accept robots, they still accept AI, and they actually still involve them in different types of activities in their community. And so, again, really good stuff. I really enjoyed that it dropped us into the action. And I kind of want to kick it off with my first pro, which is the visuals throughout the movie. They were amazing. Every AI robot looked incredible. Again, I like the design of the world. A lot of the different set pieces and kind of settings that they had, were like kind of like in these jungle types of areas in Asia. You had all these different types of futuristic parts that you would kind of run through, like in like a downtown area of an Asian country. It was really cool stuff. The cars that people would drive, what weren't just normal cars. It was just kind of unique, what you would expect maybe to see in 2065. But I think again, to me, the best part, the visuals, were the AI robots. Just how realistic their robotic parts would look on the back of their head. Again, they were human like on the front, but on the sides they would have this like almost like a huge gap where you could see kind of like things spinning, and you could see like the technology working in the back end. But it looks so realistic. You could see right through the hole, and you could see the backgrounds. Like if they were in a set of a house, you could see the back of the wall. If they were outside where there was a little bit of jungles and trees, you could see the trees through their holes. It was very well done, the visual effects in this movie. So great job to the visual effects team and anybody that worked on the CGI of this film. It just looked very spot on. Second pro that I have for this film is the relationship between Alfie, played by Madeline Yuna, and Joshua, who is played by John David Washington. Just like other movies, and like I had mentioned before, the predominant part of the film revolves around this relationship between Joshua, who is against robots because of them dropping a bomb in Los Angeles and killing some of his family members. And again, Alfie, who is again new to the world. He's experiencing this world. He's only been, viewing the world from a TV, kind of giving him updates as to what is going on. And so you have this relationship between these two where John David Washington is very cold, very harsh with Alfie at the beginning. And then you kind of see that kind of revolve and kind of go full circle until you can realize that, hey, even though they are robots, even though they might not have true feelings or true sentiment, they are real. They are things that live in this universe, in this world. And so how they play off of each other and their chemistry between Alfie and Joshua was really well done. That's again one of the things that kind of worries me sometimes of going into these films when there is like those kind of relationships. You really hope that the characters have a good chemistry. Again, great job between Madeline and John David Washington. I thought they both kind of did a really good job, and it just made you feel some of the emotion that would end up coming out throughout the film as well. Once again, there's a lot of like hesitation on Joshua's side, just because he's experienced different types of trials and tribulations throughout his life. Not only did he in the film, he also loses his wife, Maya. Maya is actually played by Gemma Chan. He ends up losing his wife, who was pregnant. And then he ends up kind of trying to, his whole mission basically throughout the movie is him trying to find his wife. He feels like she's still alive because he's seen images of her. And so all he's trying to do is get back to his wife. And so it's a lot of that relationship just kind of working between Alfie and Joshua. But, Joshua has his own kind of motives in the film. Alfie has his own motives as well. And so I think the chemistry just helped this relationship work so well, which again, it was one of the pros that I had about the movie. Third pro that I have is the pace that the film kind of had overall. Again, I just really enjoyed it. I mentioned it a little bit before. It's very simple. It's a story that, conceptually kind of just makes sense. And as you're kind of walking through it, you're like, oh, okay. You kind of feel maybe that you know what's going to happen, or you kind of get a feeling of like as to how it might work, but it's still very enjoyable. It just feels like it has a really good rhythm, dropping you into Los Angeles in 2065, then explaining Joshua's backstory. Then it jumps, to the next beat, and it just keeps the story rolling. At no point did I feel like I was rushed or it was too quick. Every scene felt like it was just building off of the other until we hit like a climax or some type of a crazy resolution. And that's what I love about movies. Sometimes films, some of the scenes you kind of look back and you're like, well, what was that for? What was the point of that? Or where was that going to drive us to in the story? And, in this one, I didn't really feel like there was any of that. Now, again, I've only seen it once. Definitely, if I were to check it out again, maybe I would pinpoint some things that didn't really make sense. But I always felt like every scene was kind of building to the next area that they needed to go to. And so, really good stuff. Again, the pacing just worked very well, at least for me. One final pro that I have for the creator is the world building that they created. Again, the setting that I mentioned, it wasn't just like a generic, like, metropolitan city like New York or Los Angeles. Yes, they do highlight Los Angeles in 2065. Again, it looked all futuristic after a nuclear bomb had exploded, but it just felt from the future, which is what I appreciated. There was things like, even little details like the sound design of the movie, kind of describing, oh, these are sounds from the future. And so, they would actually listen to music, and the music didn't sound like it was from our time as well. Everything felt like it was out of this world, and just something that, like, is not too wild or too crazy, but things that are maybe attainable from us, like, as humans, like in the next couple of years, right? Like, we can totally see these types of things occur in our world. And I just appreciated that. Again, it kind of, that's one of the reasons why I love sci-fi movies so much, is the fact that they can kind of create these kind of worlds. And then, if the story entices you as much, you just want to kind of live in that world, right? And that's kind of how I felt watching The Creator. It just made me feel like, man, this is like, obviously an intense type of world. I don't know if I would want to live in it, but as I'm watching the movie, I feel like I'm dropped in there in the year 2065. I can feel like, oh yeah, like this is a pretty intense, there's a war going on between humanity and robots. And so there's a lot of different types of tension, but again, they built that world in this universe very well. Just again, with the sound design, set pieces, all the different types of attire that the characters were wearing, just really good stuff. And so I enjoyed every piece of what I saw on the film. All right, I only have one con in regards to the movie, and I gotta say that the one con that I have is certain flashbacks that would actually appear throughout the film. Sometimes the flashbacks didn't really correlate with what was happening. So, for example, let's say, like, Joshua was kind of explaining to Alfie why he wanted to search for his wife, and they were kind of trying to search for different elements and different things or different clues, and they would then kind of show flashbacks of him and his wife, and then they, but at times they weren't even sometimes talking about his wife, and then they would show those kind of flashbacks. Again, it just kind of felt like it was not needed in those situations. We could have just shown scenes and cuts of Alfie and Joshua just walking through a city, hiding away from any kind of, authority that's trying to find them. That just kind of felt like it was a little bit off. Actually, come to think of it, I actually have one more con that I wanted to bring up, and that's actually at the end of the film, in the final moments. Spoiler warning for anybody that has not seen The Creator, but at the end of the film, there is a moment where there must be a type of sacrifice that needs to be made. So I actually called it. I knew that there was going to be a sacrifice, but I'm pretty sure a lot of other people could have called it. And it's between Alfie and Joshua. And they are stuck on this ship called the USS Nomad. And it's basically a ship that actually is a weapon for the humans to destroy as many robots as they can. But Alfie and Joshua are there to basically destroy the ship. However, they end up getting stuck. And now Alfie is in an escape pod. Joshua is not in that escape pod. There's a situation that ends up happening. But what ended up tripping me up is that Alfie, to this point, has had the power and ability to turn on cars. He's able to control other robots. And so I was a little surprised that he could not open or get this door of the escape pod open. Again, more of a nitpick. That's just on me. But I felt like, maybe we could have dived a little bit deeper into what is the parameters of Alfie's abilities in the film. Because I really thought that, he's been able to turn on a car. He's been able to kind of, control different types of robots that are going to explode. Can he not open a door? Or what are the limitations to that, right? So just wanted to throw that out there as a potential kind of like just a nitpick on my side. There probably is somewhere that explains why he couldn't. So definitely would not, again, that doesn't really drop my grade of this film whatsoever. Overall, I really enjoyed The Creator. There were so many great moments that I was just not expecting. Like, Joshua being put in a position where he's being told in the film that robots are not real. And then it kind of just gives you that flashback of him basically telling his wife at the beginning of the movie, hey, don't cry for these robots. These robots aren't real. And so it's so cool how they put the main character in those types of positions. And it kind of lets you kind of, as an audience member, realize, oh man, he's just getting that same treatment. He's getting the taste of his own medicine of how he was when he was younger. And, it's just beautiful. There was also a lot of heart-wrenching moments where, you basically, he had to say goodbye to his wife. You had that situation between Alfie and Joshua. And there's also a lot of surprisingly funny lines that occurred in the movie, something that I did not expect. Jokes that really landed very well. This film is not made as a comedy, but again, because of the film being so dark and so serious, I feel like those lines really kind of just helped make it not so depressing, right? There was like a little bit of an escape where, like, hey, instead of it being all downhill, let me give you some like little emotional moments, right? Not only the crying, but the laughter part of it as well. I really like the film. I would highly recommend you guys, if you have a chance, check it out in theaters. The experience of just viewing this entire world, the sound design, and the great story about a man that just wants to see his wife, but ends up building a relationship with like an AI robot. Just, again, it ends up being the key to save this whole world. It's just, again, a simple story, but they nail it very well. So great job, Gareth Edwards and everybody else that worked on the film for writing and the VFX. Really enjoyed it. So if you guys have a chance, definitely check it out in theaters. All right, everybody. Now I'm going to move on to my favorite performance of the film. And for this one, I'm going to actually give it to John David Washington as Joshua. He was really good in this film. Once again, just to kind of give a little background on him, he played the character that was basically a man that had no filter. He told it like he saw it. But as the movie goes on, you see him start kind of opening up to Alfie, and you realize that all he wants in life is just basically to see his wife one more time. That's basically his main goal. His main goal is not to stop the war. His main goal is not to save humanity from robots or save robots from humanity. All he wants to do is basically work with Alfie to find his wife. And again, it just shows like that. Again, some stories don't need to always revolve around somebody being a hero, right? All he wanted to do is basically just kind of his one goal, see his wife. But if he's doing heroic things along the way, then obviously that makes the story even better. And what he did really well is that he made his character seem very tough and strong on the outside, but deep down he was a caring husband. He loved his wife, and he just wanted to right the wrongs of his past. As such, in the film, John David Washington played it like very well, where again, anytime he had a vulnerable moment, you could believe it, right? Because for most of the film at the beginning, he's very serious. He has some funny lines, but you never get to see him like just kind of get sad or get very vulnerable in front of Alfie as well. And so a lot of great stuff. So, and again, I really appreciated how John David Washington kind of came to this kind of role and showed off how he could kind of act again as like a very strong character that is tough and is always going to be tough. But then at the end, kind of showing those vulnerable moments to Alfie or to anybody that he was kind of just going down as well. So to me, John David Washington really, delivered in this role, and he just kind of knocked it out of the park for me. If there was a runner-up, I actually would give it to Colonel Howell, played by Allison Janney. She did a really great job. She was kind of like the antagonist for most of the movie. All she wanted was basically to destroy Alfie or to control Alfie in order to basically win the war for humanity. But she just, again, very cold-blooded, an assassin, and she just delivered some nasty, nasty lines. But she was, again, somebody that you can kind of look at as an opposing person to Alfie and Joshua. But she did really well in this kind of a role. So great job, Allison Janney. Definitely give you a runner-up if it wasn't for John David Washington. Okay, now let's move into my favorite scene or moment of the movie. Spoiler warning for anybody that has not seen The Creator. I'm going to describe a specific scene, so if you don't want to be spoiled, definitely jump out of the video and then come back after you've seen the movie. But my favorite scene actually occurred when Alfie and Joshua are basically at a point where they are trying to find the creator. Who created Alfie in the first place? And so they're on this specific type of a setting here where they're trying to hide Alfie. And what ends up happening is they're on a bridge, and a robot that is basically turned into like a suicide bomb robot is running across this bridge, and it's basically going to blow up and kill hundreds of people. But as soon as he starts running across the bridge, Alfie actually comes out of nowhere and is able to control and stop the robot. And so this is kind of, again, highlighting some of Alfie's abilities. As he does that, he's able to basically control and stop the robot, as the robot only had 10 seconds left before it blew up. Now, where the tension occurs is basically one of the officers or soldiers that work under Colonel Howell ends up shooting Alfie in the chest. And then basically he's about to kill him and get rid of the weapon. And then as he's about to shoot, then you see Joshua basically come in and kill the officer that worked for Colonel Howell. And he basically saves Alfie. But where the scene gets even more interesting is basically now that Alfie got shot, he's not able to control the robot. And so the robot basically reboots. And then he starts counting down from 10 down to 0 in order to blow up. And then all Joshua does is basically get up, picks up Alfie, and he runs across the bridge. And then at this point in the scene, you hear no music, no score. All you hear is the footsteps of Joshua running away from the robot that's about to explode in 10 seconds. And then boom, it just explodes. It was a beautifully designed scene because of that fact of like how the score just basically is going, and then it stops. And then it just kind of gives you that rush and the tension of, oh man, Joshua's got to get the heck out of there of that radius before it blows up. And it was just well done in that specific scene. I really enjoyed that part of it. And again, I think it's because of the fact that how they set up that kind of the score going on in the background and then just cutting the sound all together and just giving you the raw sound of like Joshua just running across the wooden bridge. Just a terrific scene. I really enjoyed that part of the film. All right, everybody, we have made it to the final segment of the Timeless Movie Podcast. This is where we're going to decide if the creator, after one view at the theater, is a timeless movie. I will say this as my honest opinion. The creator has potential to be a timeless movie. It is very straightforward. The film kept me engaged. I was thoroughly enjoyed for every part of this futuristic world. I think the movie can kind of let you escape and make you feel like you're experiencing something that's out of this world or like, part of something that we might see in the future. It just does its job so well. The visuals, the sound, the narrative of the film, they all work so well. They all kind of mesh together and it just made it for a very enjoyable experience in the theater. It's not perfect. I will say that. It's not a perfect movie. But I can definitely see myself checking this out due to, again, the sci-fi adventure and how interesting it is and just how beautiful it all looked as I was seeing it in Dolby Cinema. I also think the concept of AI and robots, I think it's so relatable to our time right now, just because, again, we're in that kind of society where we're using ChatGPT. We're using more and more AI in all of our jobs. And so I feel like, again, this film kind of delves into that about like, hey, look, what is the problem? Is the problem that, we don't trust robots? Is it the problem humans? And so it kind of, again, the ideas kind of bleed into real life. And so some of my favorite movies are the ones that kind of bleed into real life. Not a complete kind of true story, but more so something that's kind of like a fantasy or something that's dramatized, but has true elements, right, that we do experience on a day-to-day basis. And so, again, when it comes to technology, it's definitely something that we can all relate to as of this moment because we're dealing with it in real time. Definitely something that I want to watch again. But at this point, Creator was an awesome movie. Definitely recommend. And it has the potential to be a timeless movie. Definitely got to see it a couple more times to make it like a guaranteed, yes, timeless movie. I'll put it on my top movies to watch. But it has that potential. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to episode number 50 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and make sure to tune in next week for another new episode of the Timeless Movie Podcast. All right, guys, take care.